the ultimate way to determine whether or not the person has reached an acceptable level of competency and or skill is to actually observe them doing whatever their daily tasks are in their job, and obviously the person observing them has to be competent themselves, and then assessing how well they're actually doing it. And I think that piece is really important because that allows you to refine. If everybody that you've put through your program at the end and you're watching them and they're still making the same common mistakes, well, there's probably something missing from your training program, and you need to go back to the drawing board and potentially add something in or alter something that's in there because you're not getting the behavior that you want.
So I think in a small way, to me that's part of the difference or the impact of education in general. I think human beings or human civilization, like, I do think we went through this sort of bureaucratic revolution, like this ability to be more bureaucratic than ever. But the tools that we have, you could be building a shed in the middle of, nowhere, and you still have to, somebody can still drive out and get you a permit for that shed, right? We've gotten so good at, tracking things and requiring the tracking of things. I think that's one direction that we have is very permissions based, right? And then you look at, okay, what is the impact of education? How has this changed eh, with all of these new tools, with bringing down the barrier for taking video and photograph evidence and all of this stuff? What have we done that would allow us to, to actually impact lives and things like that? And maybe, we reach a point where actually the difference between the old bureaucratic days, where it's a good thing because we don't want people building sheds that fall down on their heads. And so we're going to send somebody out to take a look at your shed before you're allowed to use it, right? And if this happens thousands of times a year, we're going to send out this, we're going to send this guy out thousands of times, and you just got to wait for your turn, right? And maybe part of the difference is we start to have, instead of something that has a checklist and a permissions base, we start to look at looking at what happens when the individual has a little bit more education. What if you could, successfully learn about how to build a safe shed through a program that collected a lot of information, that collected a lot of data that wasn't just a checklist. I drove out there and saw the shed, but all along the way we collect something and we collect a waiver and then we say, okay, this guy could build a shed. And, based on all of the documentation provided, everything is good. What if the individual had to be a little bit less monitored? And, and what does that look like? What does that look like at a civilization level? What's that look like at an organization level where, if they put in their time and they prove that they are capable of doing what they're doing, they had a little bit more autonomy. Does that change how we allocate resources? Does that change how fast somebody can get something done or be able to take initiative on their own, while still, you know, playing according to the rules and following best practices and things like that?